California in Focus.
Hello, I'm Assemblyman Curt Hagman, and welcome to California in Focus. Today's focus is on jobs. You hear about the rough economy in the news, read it in the papers, or maybe it's hitting close to home. Maybe you're looking for work or know someone who needs a job. Joining me to talk about what the legislature must do to bring back private sector jobs is John Kapitek from National Federation of Independent Business and Jack Stewart of California Manufacturers and Technology Association. There are companies that want to expand in California, but Sacramento job-killing legislation is making it too expensive. I recently visited one of Southern California's companies and got to hear firsthand about the challenges and opportunities when it comes to doing business in the Golden State. Let's watch this. I'm here in Ontario, California at Mag Instrument with Tony Maglight, the president of Maglight. And we all know you by Maglight. This is a wonderful facility here. What are we going to see today?
Well, you can see manufacturing where we make these flashlights in USA.
And you make the Maglight that's known internationally. And how many were you making a day at your peak here?
We used to make over 150,000 a day since 1979.
Sounds great. Let's go take a look at your factory.
Sure,
okay?
Let's go.
Hey Tony, thank you for bringing us on your floor. We're standing in front of the AA assembly line, right? We're manufacturing one of your products right here.
That's right.
This beautiful flashlight. You make several different models throughout this facility.
Make lots of them.
How much square footage do you have here, first of all?
Right here we have 705,000 square feet.
All in Ontario?
No, just in this building.
Just this building, wow.
Yeah, we got the more buildings. We got the smaller building of 50,000, 30,000, 20,000. We got 9 buildings additional to this.
And how many people are you employing here?
Right now we employ 700, but we had till not a year ago we have over 1,000 people.
1,000 people manufacturing your well-known flashlight here. It's awesome.
Thank you.
And can you tell me real briefly, you're competing internationally with your lights right now. You're the only manufacturer of flashlights left in the United States, I understand?
I'm making everything here in California.
You make everything here. Now what can we do as a state government to help, or what do we do to hurt you, I guess? One of the two different questions.
Well, one thing, they should ease up on regulations that are not absolutely necessary. That's the one thing.
The regulations are hurting your competition. You can't compete because we add those costs on.
Well, the stuff comes from China. There's about the same price as what we're selling. But of course, the stores, they get a great discount over there. I can't make it for that. For instance, I have a O-ring that I want to make in this country. Just actually what you see on paper, I just sign over there to make a tool. It's going to cost me in this country $1.40 for the O-ring, and from same supplier, they're going to make it in this country. He can bring it from overseas for 4 cents. Wow. Now, how can you compete with that?
So you think California, since you started this 30 plus years ago, have you seen it getting much harder here in California to do business?
It's made it very hard. Very hard. Everything is more expensive. Your powder, your regulations, and the cities are not very friendly to really help you. I could go to some other state. I could get all kind of help. I could get, actually money for every person I hire. Over here, they look like they punish you for everything that you do.
So the one message is for us is to stay out of your way. Let you create jobs. Let you be competitive.
That's all I wanted. Just leave me alone, and don't tax me to death. Give me some freedom so I can create a job. You see, the government can't create a job. People expect the government they can't create a job. The government is not the business people. They have their own things that they're supposed to do, but not run the business. I put my life into this thing. It's a whole my life was over there. I know this business better than any people in the government.
Yeah. Now, Tony, you make your own machines here from scratch. You make your own tools.
Yes.
You make your own machines. You design everything from scratch.
Yes.
Can you go take us to your tool room? Let us see that as well?
Sure. Some of it.
Okay.
Some of
it's top secret. We got to stay away from that.
Yeah, I can't
okay.
show you that. Okay.
Okay, Tony, you were telling me that here at Maglight, you not only manufacture the lights, but you also manufacture the machinery.
Oh yeah.
And in this section, what do you have working on right here?
Well, over here, this is a sort of kind of support department. We building cutting tools over here.
So they rebuild the tools to make the product.
Well, you have to have a cutting tools to be able to cut the metal and stuff like that. So this supports the automation over there next door, multi-spindle screw machines, and then milling machines that we have and the CNC sanders.
And you were telling me earlier that just in these little areas right here, you have hundreds of years of experience in metalworking and machinery.
These people over here,
experience.
The crew they have over there, I would say, just guessing, it's at least 400, maybe more years of the experience. And when these people go, it's gone.
Because we're losing the manufacturing jobs here in
Losing
California.
Manufacturing, young people do not.
They're not taking those classes,
training,
not learning from the.
They don't, and they're looking some other job. And you know, these people are very good. You can't replace them. It's the art itself.
It's the art itself. I understand. What kind of advice would you give young entrepreneurs here in California? I know it's a difficult climate to get started.
I'll tell you what I will tell them. I will tell them to vote, to start with, to get involved in politics. I don't like politics, but I'm telling them to get involved. I think everybody needs to get involved and really, what do they want in their life? They want it to America be like it used to be. The nation where we was able to develop the product, develop the thing, we can be the first one in the world, or we just going to follow the China or whoever else it is. You know, we gotta voice ourselves. I mean, this is a crime what happened to the country over there. I mean, we become just like a Europe, and that's horrible.
Well, Tony, I am very impressed what you've done. You built from nothing. I remember one machine in your garage to creating Maglight that is internationally known as the high quality, and we're very proud of you to call you, especially when a Californian, and we want to thank you for taking us on the tour today.
Thank you.
And we're going to do everything we can to make sure that you can stay competitive for the future.
Thank you so much.
Well, that was an interesting video, and Tony's a great guy, and he built this company from scratch on his own. One of the American dream stories that we have. And we have Jack and John. Both of you guys represent, the businesses in California. What's going on at this point? Why are we the second highest unemployment in the nation at this point?
Well, part of the reason is we're an over-regulated, over-taxed state. We have manufacturing, the sector I represent, has seen a dramatic decline in manufacturing over the last 10 years. We have gone from about 1.9 million manufacturing jobs down to about 1.3 million manufacturing jobs. We've actually lost 33% of our industrial workforce in California over the last 10 years. And
we've gained in population in that same period of time.
Gained in population, and nationally now, the statistics show that manufacturing is starting to lead the way out of this recession. But in California, we're not seeing that same results. Over the last 2 years, nationally, we've created 404,000 new manufacturing jobs. Texas created 29,000 new manufacturing jobs over the last 2 years. Yeah. We have lost another 700 manufacturing jobs over the same 2 years. So what's happening is investors are not looking at California as a place to invest their money because our business climate is so unpredictable.
And they're not creating jobs because of that, right?
That's right.
And John, you represent all the small businesses out there throughout the state. And can you tell us about California versus other states? Are they growing here? Are they doing well?
Well, what we hear from the small business owners we represent and so many others out there throughout California is the common word repeatedly, uncertainty. Uncertainty on Main Street, that really government isn't doing their fair share of helping small businesses be successful. Instead, as Jack said, they're overloading them with taxes, regulations, lawsuit abuse is rampant in our communities, and then just a climate of gotcha in California versus other states, which more often than not tend to be welcome. How can we help you be successful? How can we help you create jobs and feed the economy?
And we hear those lines all the time. We are overregulated, overtaxed. Give us some examples of what we have out there. What have we done recently that really makes our businesses go, we're crazy over here in California?
Well, one of the things that increases uncertainty, or I say unpredictability, same thing, is we have a law on our books now, AB 32, which is our climate change law, that is regulating all facets of our economy, raising costs on energy, putting higher costs on operating in California. And not only are these laws now these regulations now coming into place, but their regulations are going to be going on for the next 30 years, because AB 32 doesn't just regulate the next 10 years, it regulates the next 40 years. So California is the victim of many California-only rules and regulations, which make it more difficult to do business here. There's national regulations, federal regulations, and California has always prided itself by the fact that we're able to stay one step ahead of the national regulatory bodies, especially on environmental regulations. But what's happening is we've just made California uncompetitive for investment.
I think that's the bottom line. But for those who don't really know what our energy laws are, basically for our green energy standards, and we want to create that creates a much higher cost for electricity. So with manufacturing, it may cost them X to do it in Texas, but X plus Y in California, and when they're competing on both a national, international market, they can't compete anymore. So they're moving more and more of those facilities out to grow it. And then you throw on, I've heard like truck drivers have to change all their trucks, and we have to put new engines in them, and all these capital improvement costs. Those are some of the things we're doing on the manufacturers. And on the small business side, boy, I've heard a whole bunch of crazy laws we're passing on them to really make it harder and want them to go outward.
Yeah, and again, what I think we hear from the average dry cleaner, the baker, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, but so many people in our communities who really are the mom and pops and really do make up about 99.2% of the business community in our state, is that there's just not a culture of welcome. When we've been to other states, talked to businesses that actually began here, what they said that the difference is that the elected officials, the regulators, the local fire marshal would come to their door and say, how can we help you? How can we help you be a successful business so that you can help create jobs and be successful with us? But California has the third highest income tax rate in the country. We have the highest sales tax. 2.2 million Californians are out of work. And what we hear from small business owners is we just want government to get out of the way or be more responsible, at least be more responsible as we go about being successful job creators.
Well, I'm a small business guy too when I came up here, and I still have my businesses going. And one of the things that amazes me is how many laws we have each year. Can both of you comment? I know we file thousands of them literally every cycle. So that's part of that uncertainty that you talked about earlier, that how does a business invest in a 5, 10, 20, 30-year model to get a return on a large investment when we're always changing the rules every time? So, some of the things that, stepped out at me last session was like, regulating babysitters and doing things, just every little facet of our life is going to be regulated one part or the other. And throw that up with the highest, tax state around, these companies have to compete outside and with other states, other, competitors outside the state, and they just can't do it on that. What can we do to move forward?
Well, one of the things I think we can do is we can try to bring our regulatory climate under control. We have given so much authority, the legislature has ceded so much authority to the regulatory agencies that now they have the ability to write regulations that actually go beyond what the legislature ever had in mind.
And give us some examples. That's the California Air Resource Board.
And the Department of Toxic Substance Control, the State Water Board. I mean, there's a whole host of, but for example, the California Air Resources Board on AB 32, and let me come back to that because that is an issue that's right front and center right now on the regulations. I mean, when that legislation was passed, it was a framework legislation. It was only about 13 or 14 pages. Basically, the legislature set goals and then said to CARB, okay, now you figure out how we're going to get here. And it's been very difficult getting input into that situation. I mean, they have their hearings and their public meetings, but it's been very difficult to get any changes in what they've been trying to do. And so now we have the California Air Resources Board. Now they've come out with this new idea of an auction to go out to raise fees to pay for carbon credits.
And then we hear about that cap and trade.
It's called cap and trade. That's right.
And wasn't there supposed to be the ideal thing was all the rest of the states and other countries are going to compete with us, and if it's an even playing field, then we have a good chance.
And at one time, Governor Schwarzenegger had, I think, 10 Western states and Canadian provinces signed up to participate in the Western Climate Initiative, where there'd be a trading between these various states and provinces on carbon credits.
But California's the only one left. Right?
California's the only one left. Maybe Quebec will still be in the mix, but that's not for certain yet. California's about the only one left in that.
Yeah. We talked about these boards, John. I know you helped. We sponsored a bill together last year, to put a small business person on CARB to make sure that those interests of business know how to connect the dots and know that if you do one thing wrong here, what that may affect later down the road. And remind the viewers what happened with that. We got it out of both sides.
Yeah, we were really disappointed to see what happened with that, especially since it was such a great bill that actually made it out of both houses of the legislature and made it to the governor's desk. And it was quite simple, but very important. And basically it said it required that one member of the California Air Resources Board have small business background. No new cost to the state, no new burden, and actually would have been a real feather in the cap of anybody supporting this to say, here's a step in the direction of regulatory reform with our leading job creators, small business. Unfortunately, the governor vetoed that. We see environmental lobbies and others try to influence this process without understanding that if a regulation is done right on the front end, with small business at the table, with manufacturers and others at the table, it's going to be done right the first time. So we appreciated your support. We're sorry, but we're going to keep coming back for sure to make sure that the business community does have a seat at the table in government, because that is very important when it comes to outcomes.
And for those who are watching that are securing their job, one of the things I like to tell them is, all those services that we're cutting back the last couple of years and our budget, problems, we're a consumer as a government. We take in tax dollars and we turn around and spend them on programs that we find that are important to us. As the economy goes down, the joblessness goes down or up, I guess. Yeah. We have less of those resources to spend on services and products that we provide to our residents. And so I think it affects everyone, whether or not you're jobless or not at this point, what their company's going to do in the future. Are they going to expand? Are they going to even stay here? What's some of the numbers you've heard about the companies leaving California in the last couple of years?
Well, we see a lot. It has been increasing, and I can't give you exact numbers. But we have a state and a modern state government that was built during a time, in a budget that was built during a time when we had a robust industrial economy. We grew middle class jobs, we grew companies, and we grew revenue for the state. And at the same time we are needing that revenue to balance our budget, we're undermining the foundation of our business climate and making it more difficult for companies to stay here and grow here. So we have kind of a dichotomy here where you have, on one hand, we need a strong industrial economy that's going to create middle-class jobs and create revenue to the state. At the same time, the state seems to be working against us to grow that economy and against itself. That's one of the things we ought to understand up front when we do new regulations, new laws. We ought to understand what the ultimate unintended consequences are going to be to jobs in California, to economic growth in California, and ultimately for the state government. I think every member of the legislature and the governor's administration ought to want to know what impact a rule or regulation is going to have on revenues back to the state in 5 or 10 years when those rules and regulations go into effect.
There was a company, Waste Connections, here in the Sacramento region. It was actually, I think, the largest publicly traded company here in the Sacramento region that recently announced that it will be moving to the Woodlands, Texas. Specifically, the president, the morning that they announced it, the president of the organization cited regulations and taxes as the reasons that they were leaving California, and that Texas was a more business-friendly climate. One thing people don't ever think about very often, and notably many in elected office, you certainly have been very cognizant of it, but many don't, and that is when a business of any size leaves a community, the first casualties in those communities are the small businesses that work and serve with them and the jobs that go with it. And all too often, I think people tend to think, well, we lost one big business in Folsom, it's not a big deal. Let's not forget the dry cleaners, the taquerias, the car washes, and the jobs that go with it, and the families that are going to suffer as a result, and already struggling in this state.
Absolutely. We see that whole trickle-down effect, and I think that's why we're still over 10% here in California unemployment, because of those after effects. And we see a lot of big names that I recognize. We have a lot of the best research and development here in California. Really do have some of the best education and upper education here. And those companies will leave their research and technology, the engineers here, because we give them a tax credit for that. But all their manufacturing's outside the state, which really frustrates me.
That's a very good point, and we've looked at some of those numbers. And over the last 15 years, California has received an average of 45% of all the venture capital investment in the United States. It comes to California. We do the R&D here. We do the innovation here. But when it comes time to go to scale, and when there's a product and manufacture that product, the model is you go to Asia or you go to another state to do it because California is just too expensive. One blockade to getting manufacturing here is the fact that California, for manufacturing machinery and equipment, charges full sales and use tax on that equipment. We're one of only 3 states that charge that tax. The other 2 are South Dakota and Wyoming, not competitive industrial states. So any company that's going to scale up in California and go into and begin manufacturing, when they buy their equipment, they have to pay an additional 7, 8, or 9% in sales tax for that equipment that they wouldn't have to pay anyplace else.
And I think, knowing both of you, well, I do, all of us have optimism for California. We do have the resources, we do have the people, we do have everything that's needed to turn California around if myself and my colleagues and the governor will sit there and start doing the right things. And so I'm very optimistic about the future if we could turn some of these policies around and we could be a little progressive, but not so far in front that we leave all their businesses behind, don't give them time to adapt. That's one of my biggest complaints about a lot of these regulations is businesses take time and need to put it in their plan to change out equipment. Like, why go out and replace all your trucks, for example, when the lifespan may be 15 years? Let them work their way through, and when time to grow and get new equipment, we can buy that new equipment. We can still be progressive in a lot of ways, still be the innovators that we are here in California, but do so in a pragmatic way. And I think that's one of the biggest disconnects I see with my colleagues is that they really don't understand how long it takes to put things in effect, and let the businesses and community kind of ease into these things a little bit.
And also understanding the nature of global competition. I mean, in the last 15 years, the world has changed. I mean, we at CMTA did some work with the Milken Institute looking at cost of doing business manufacturing in California vis-a-vis the other states. And the fact is we're 23% more costly in California than the other 49 states. Our electricity rates alone are 50% higher than the average of the other states. And the National Association of Manufacturers looks at that same issue, looking at the industrialized nations of Europe, Asia, and North America, comparing them to the cost of manufacturing in the United States. They find that it's about 26% more costly to manufacture in the United States than the average of the industrialized world. So you take our international disadvantage and then our domestic disadvantage, and you can see that it's almost 50% more costly to manufacture a product in California than it is in other parts of the world. And we have to get those numbers under control.
And I'm surprised we're still competitive a little bit as it is.
Yeah, another area that I really believe we have opportunity for real bipartisan reform this year is our legal system in California that is really negatively affecting businesses, oftentimes small businesses. And when I talk about that, we really have a legal system that is just broken in California that has created and actually encouraged a cottage industry for trial lawyers and plaintiffs' attorneys. And when I talk about that, I talk about the Americans with Disabilities Act. Small business owners and NFIB and the business community believe in accessibility. What we have created, though, is a culture where trial lawyers have really looked at it and said, I'm looking at this as a quick buck versus a justice fixing, and helping in terms of a justice and the system here. And what they've done is they're going through our communities and they're going to small business owners because they know they're more easily will settle, and really shaking them down for alleged ADA violations. No right to correct time, no time to fix the situation, no time to appeal or talk through the issue, just a parking lot that may be 0.036 degrees off in grading. They're asking them to pay them, $5, $10, $15,000 now, or millions in the court of law. And that's just a system that's not right. So I think we have an opportunity to really fix a broken legal system that has really preyed upon job creators, specifically small businesses who just want to do the right thing, but oftentimes are just an easy target for these folks.
So if I could summarize a little bit, we have taxation issues, one of the highest tax states. We have regulation issues. We have a regulatory body that's not necessarily connected to either the legislature or to the business community. And we have a legal system that's also playing havoc, and energy costs. So a little bit you throw out together, it's not a silver bullet necessarily, one particular thing. It's the combination of things that despite our great weather and being next to the beach or up and down California, you have this thing where the business owner or owners and the board will have to look at and say, I want to expand here in California, I want to go someplace else. Maybe not as desirable to live or to be at, but when I look at it, I got to compete against my other competitors in those fields, I'm going to look elsewhere. So it's not just the businesses we're losing now, but the ones we're preventing from expanding here in California.
Right. And there's 2 other items I'd add to that list of problems. One is inadequate infrastructure. I did a trip to San Diego last week. I drove back and forth. The roads are terrible. California. I mean, I was pulling a trailer, and I feared the entire time that I was going to shake something apart on some of the roads, the 405 freeway, especially coming through Los Angeles, and the 5 up through the San Fernando Valley. And then the other issue is the skilled workforce. California, the world, as I said, the world has changed. California is an expensive place to do business, and we have to have workers who are trained in the skills that are needed in the 21st century, and we are not doing that in our public schools in California anymore.
Well, you two are both the experts in this state. Where can people turn to, from your organizations, get more information? How can they get involved? What can they do to get more educated on this?
Well, the National Federation of Independent Business, we serve about 20,000 small businesses in California. We are the voice of small business, and they can reach us at our website, which is nfib.com, or our telephone number, 916-448-9904. The larger our voice from the Main Street perspective, in coordination with groups like Jack's and others, the more we make sure that that small business American dream that you talked about from the start, Maglight and others, will be able to be heard and be able to grow and create jobs and succeed in California.
Excellent. And Chad?
And we're very simple, www.cmta.net. Very easy. Come and see what we do, see the issues that we have laid out there. We'd appreciate that, and we're always looking for support from the industrial community in California. And I do want to say that the business community does do a very good job of coordinating and working in coalitions on a number of these very difficult issues that we have before us.
Yeah.
I mean, we find that we spend more time not fixing problems, but keeping more bad legislation from being passed in the California
Give us time
legislature.
to react. Give us
Yes.
time to compete. Make sure that we are on an even playing field or close to it so we can make our businesses grow. That's why I hear over and over and over again. And I appreciate both the work that you guys do for the business community. Without those private sector jobs, there wouldn't be any stuff for us to do up here and spend your money and resources and taxation. And this is going to be a series of interviews we're going to have in the future, and we want to make sure that we inform the public. We get the information out there, let them make their own decisions on issues and ballot measures and electorates, but we want to make sure they're informed. So thank you both for coming in. We have great experts, Jack and John. Thank you so much. And we'll be a series of these for California. We're going to try to do a bunch of them on every different subject. We heard today about how California is competing or not competing, in this case, on job creation, job retention here in California, and all the different effects it has. And we want to thank you both for coming on. So thank you for watching California Focus, and we'll see you next time.